Englander momentarily. Today is Friday, August 23rd. We have a meaty agenda today, and we're going to get started with item number 4. I will not go through the agenda just yet until Mitch gets here. But if we do have a presentation, I believe that's item number 4 on the cert item. John, if you can read item 4 into the record.
Morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 4, motion Blumenfield Englander instructing the Fire Department and the Emergency Management Department to report with recommendations for establishing training programs geared towards specific segments of the population, including teens, youth, seniors, disabled, and homeless persons.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. If we can have a presentation from the Fire Department. Anyone here from Emergency Management as well? If you can come on up. Thank you, ma'am. Captain, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I understand we also have John here from Councilmember Blumenfield's office as well. Thanks, John. If you want to join the table, you good? Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Who wants to start? Emergency Management, Cap?
Certainly. Good morning. Anna Burton, Assistant General Manager with the Emergency Management Department. Pleased to be here this morning. Looking at the question before us is education for special populations and those communities within the group. I'd like to present some of the programs that we are offering now and the focus related to community preparedness. To start off with, we are in the resolve of an ADA lawsuit so that all of the programs and the outreach in the community preparedness activities are in close coordination with the court-mandated vendor who's working with us to ensure all of our printed material, all of our website information, all of the language, and all of our outreach material are fully accessible to the people with disabilities and those others with access and functional needs. So we're very conscientious about that, and we're working to make sure full compliance in everything that we do and other information that we work with other city departments on.
Okay.
Our Emergency Management Department 2012-2015 strategic plan included a very specific goal related to community education and training. So within our department, we have a Community Emergency Management Division, and those staff work directly with what we call disaster management districts. And those are directly aligned with LAPD bureaus, and those assigned emergency professional managers within our department liaison with police, with fire, with neighborhood councils, with faith-based groups, with nonprofits, with schools and other agencies to make sure we have a direct relationship with them and support them in activities that they're working on specific for community preparedness. We're working on several partnerships with organizations that also provide training. Specifically, we're developing an update to our MOU with the American Red Cross, one with the Salvation Army, renewing our agreement with the Los Angeles Emergency Preparedness Foundation, Emergency Network Los Angeles, which is the voluntary organization active in disaster for the Los Angeles County area, BICEP, the Business and Industry Council for Emergency Preparedness and Planning, that supports business preparedness, and other agencies like an organization called Rubicon, which is a group of veterans who come together and are offering support in disaster for people with just victims of disaster. We are working very specifically with the faith-based organizations in the city of Los Angeles to ensure that we can liaison with them. They have an understanding of emergency management and how critical they are in times of disaster. Another critical outreach we're working on is a university consortium. We created a consortium in 2008 that brings together higher level educational institutions, and we provide information that they can use to better prepare the universities as a group and whole. We have several websites that provide a great deal of public preparedness information. Our Ready LA website was recently updated to be 508 compliant. We used actually Homeland Security grant money to make sure all of the information, the website, and everything else was compliant and accessible to people with disabilities and others with access and functional needs. We recently used grant money to conduct an exercise and develop a neighborhood planning tool in the Arroyo Seco neighborhood last year. That tool, that video, all of the information in the toolbox that was created is available and is accessible in either DVD format, and we've recently acquired additional funds in the 2013 grant years, so we'll be doing a substantial number of additional workshops for neighborhoods throughout the city in the upcoming 24 months. We use social media regularly. We have a Twitter and a Facebook account, so that community information we post there is up to date and contemporary, and we use that quite a bit. I think one of our most successful collaborations recently is our working with the Department of Aging, understanding how that community is growing. They have very specific needs. We've been working with that department, and we've been able to access grant funds to purchase durable medical equipment. We've been purchasing cots and other equipment. We've purchased it, and we've deployed it based on the Department of Aging, and that equipment is now actually staged at aging centers across the city. We also use funds to provide disaster medical training, so that aging, those people who use the aging centers, they came in, they were given training and preparedness information on how to prepare their own medicines for time of disaster. And we're continuing to work with the Department of Aging to support all of their programs in educating the seniors. In addition to that, we work closely with the police and the fire department, and we are in support of CERT. We recently, EMD supported and applied for $100,000 in equipment money to get helmets, vests, and purchase manuals from the 2013 State Homeland Security Grant 2 weeks ago, and we're very delighted that that was approved by the County of Los Angeles. We annually host our emergency management workshop that's coming up next week. In this, we provide leadership, crisis management information, and just train the executives and emergency personnel in the city of the key contemporary issues related to emergency management. One of the tools that we use for community education is Alert LA County. The county contracts with 21st Century, and this is a mass notification system that utilizes voice, text, TTY, and email to distribute information based on a disaster scenario. This is a register system, as well as a system that's dependent on the 911 telephone system. We recently used it on July 13 when there was a gasoline fire tanker at the I-5 and Stadium Way interchange. There were some problems with that first test, so we're continuing to work with the county to make sure any use of that system meets the expectations and the needs of the city and EMD whenever we have to use it. In terms of a statewide public education campaign, we work very closely with Caltech and USGS for the statewide Great California Shakeout. This exercise started in 2008. For the 2013, the exercise is going to be October 17th, and we actually support that. We have over 10 million people. We work with all of our partners, and I think that's a huge success in providing information to city employees and the public.
Great. And you have these documents that you can file with the committee as well, so we can have this report online?
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. Thank you. And then let me just ask, we've got a representative from CD3 here, if you can weigh in. And
Sure. Excuse me.
Great.
Thank you,
John.
Mr. Chair,
Good morning.
Council Members Martinez and Council Member Buscaino. My name is John Poposh. I'm with Council Member Bob Blumenfield, CD3, and part of my charge was to reach out to our community action teams. Bob created some community action teams in different issue areas, and one of them was disaster preparedness. In the state, when he was an assembly member, he had the Valley Public Response for Emergency Preparedness Task Force, and one of the key people in that task force was introduced to us by Chairman Englander's office, Nathan Wolfstein, who will be speaking shortly. So we're grateful for that, because he's been very active in the disaster preparedness community. And because of Nathan, we reached out to him on ideas for emotions to look at how we can continue to help out our team at the Emergency Management Department and the Los Angeles Fire Department on a good job they're already doing, and what we can continue to help them do to provide more resources for people to be trained who are of the vulnerable communities, such as disabilities and seniors. So that was really the impetus behind this motion, and that's why we're grateful that the department and the fire department is here, and also some of our speakers, so thank you for the time.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, I want to thank you as well, and we've been a big proponent of certain fact. And first and foremost, let me welcome Nuri Martinez, our councilwoman here, to Public Safety as well. And good morning, good morning, Mr. Buscaino. I think we need a motion on to fix the traffic from Chatsworth to get here as well. In any event, one of the things that we laid out years ago under my predecessor is challenging every council office to get CERT certified. We were the first. We remain the one that hold the record. But I want to thank all the community as well as Christopher Cooper, who I see here as well, firefighter who's been instrumental in working with the community. But with that, if we can bring Mr. Holtzman. Oh, sure.
I too, if I can, Mr. Chair, echo your thanks to Captain Cooper as well. If you look at what we've done in Watts, and maybe Mr. Blumenfield can look at and model the Teen CERT program, an incredible program that we think it should be modeled on a national scale. But we just had the graduation of our teens not too long ago. I just want to acknowledge Captain Cooper and the work that he's done with our kids, and specifically in the Watts area. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. In fact, we were just talking recently at an event, and I'd learned what he's done in bringing it to schools and certain schools, and getting it to young people and getting them trained at an early age, and it's phenomenal, the success. So with that, if we can open it up, we've got Nathan Wolfstein as public comment. I wanted to bring you up as well. Did you want to add anything? I'm sorry.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Briefly, if we
Captain
could.
Gerlich, I am actually the CERT commander, and I just wanted to give a few numbers because we really don't put them out there, and I would like the people to understand the impact that we have and have had in the city since the inception of the program in 1987, and it started here with Los Angeles and with the LA Fire Department. We're training approximately 4,000 citizens a year in the CERT program. Currently, Captain Cooper and I have been collaborating and working very diligently throughout the city, not only in the teen arena, but also the CERT, the seniors, the access and function needs, the homeless, and the seniors. And we have, effectively, we are delivering 72 CERT classes every year, and we're in 16 locations every week. We are completely ADA compliant. We hold them at locations where the access is available to anyone. And also, the teen program that you speak of, Councilmember Buscaino, is being awarded with a
I didn't know if that was published
big
or not.
award. It is from Washington, D.C. In September. And we're extremely excited about that as well. And Captain Cooper will be attending, and I would love to have gone, but I will be graduating that same week, so not able to attend, but he will be there, and it will be a fascinating and wonderful endeavor for the city of Los Angeles specifically. And in terms of the groups that we speak of this morning, I wanted to say that we have done many classes at the Braille Institute. The CERT manual we have available in Braille as well, should that be needed or requested. We do teen CERT programs on a normal and regular basis with the Monroe Fire Academy, Sylmar High School, Mulholland Middle School, and Charter School, as well as LA International Charter School, and Cedars-Sinai. We've had groups there. So a teen CERT program is not new, but I think it's starting to finally get some traction. And it's a good time for us to be pushing that, and we are getting a lot of requests. So that's good, and we're here to continue that endeavor as well. We do normal classes and regular classes at the Weingard Center downtown, and the John Tracy Clinic and the Council of the Blind also. So we are really touching, I believe, the constituency, and I think at this point, the most exciting that just happened yesterday, we graduated our first group of 26 LAPD senior lead and CROW officers, because we are now, maybe you're not aware, but hopefully you are, that we are
Yes.
trying to collaborate now with the men and women in blue to make this an LA City CERT endeavor, not LAFD, and that way we can reach more people and we can increase the resiliency throughout the city of Los Angeles.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm very aware of that. In fact, and I know that CERT was on the chopping block quite a
Yes.
few years ago, and it was Councilman Smith that stepped up at the time and said, no, we're going to fully fund it, and it's only grown ever since, so I really appreciate it. It's an incredible program. And with that, one of the true citizens who is the leader in emergency preparedness and disaster preparedness hosts the annual Emergency Preparedness Fair, which gets roughly 1,000 people, I think, but I've won every year at the burger toss. So with that, Nathan Wolfstein, if you could.
Thank you, Councilman. I will tell you this, sitting here with Anna Burton, Captain Gerlich, and addressing yourself and the other council members, I think you're three of the people that I've worked with a lot over the years that have opened a lot of doors to getting more trained volunteers. Specifically with the fair you mentioned, we're coming up on the 6th annual disaster fair. We're expecting almost 1,200 this year. So it's become a really, truly whole community event, which is really what this motion is addressing, that in the city, the goal is to get 10% of the population, or 400,000 trained volunteers. The bottom line is we need to expand the definition of that teen training, senior training, homeless training. These are a way that we can go from the 60,000 current defined trained volunteers to the 400,000 in the next 3.5 years. So that's what it's been. And with Captain Gerlich, she actually trained me and my wife 7 years ago in CERT. So that's when we started. And with Captain Cooper and Captain Gerlich, we just did the 2nd annual CERT refresher with 5 other counties supporting us on the Tejon Ranch. So that was another part, and not only training people, but keeping them refreshed and keeping them up to date and hands-on activities.
Well, thank you very much. And Nathan, I can't think of anybody else that I've ever come across, quite frankly, who is as dialed in with you in emergency preparedness and getting people motivated, working with neighborhood councils, faith-based organizations. I mean, you're constantly out there pitching it everywhere you go, and it is saving lives and getting people prepared, but prepared every day, in everyday emergencies, not just disasters. So our hats go off to you as well. So thank you very much. With that, we'll go ahead and note and file the report and move it on to council as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I add one closing, sir? That September
We have
is,
one public comment card on that. I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry. September is National Preparedness Month, and we are working on several media campaigns, and there's going to be fairs, carnivals, and different outreach events at different locations throughout the month of September.
Okay.
And so the department is delighted and just wants to make sure that that's noted as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We took the public comment card on that item already. With that, we've got Chief Cummings here. We'll take item 1. Actually, we'll just go ahead and go through the consent calendar for those who are here on that. We've got numerous grants up and a couple of contract extensions. I think we can go on, take on consent. That's a 1. Yeah. Nine. Thank you very much. With that, we've got a couple comment cards on the consent calendar, so we'll go ahead and move. We'll move items on consent. If there's no objection, item 5, item 6, item 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 15. Some of the members have any objection? That'll be the order. So those will be on consent.
Council members, pardon me, on item 12, you have a CA report that was submitted after the publication of the agenda. You wish to approve that report on your action.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and approve that CAO report.
Thank you.
And then I know on one of these, my staff had asked for a copy of a contract that we'll get before it goes to council as well. So we'll go ahead and note that. Items 9, we have a speaker card, and 14, so we'll hold those on the desk. Come back to those. And with that, on item 1, we have two speaker cards before we call the chief up. Arnold Sachs, followed by Noel Weiss. You want to both take the table? Oh, this is a special one. Okay.
Special. I'm here for one, too. Is that too late?
Anytime you're ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Arnold Sachs. Just a couple of quick questions. Basically, I'm not 100% sure this is about the staffing for the EMTs, but my concerns with the city and the fire department are, there was an article a few months ago, maybe last year at some time, regarding the cooperation between the city and the county fire stations on emergency calls, that people in the county who were relatively close to a city fire station couldn't get service. They had to wait for a county station that may be miles away. And the same cooperation or lack of cooperation was occurring with the city. People who lived in the city next to a county fire station were waiting for city fire to show up when county was nearby. And between that and the staffing, now in the last budget hearings you had last year, there was concerns about staffing, and it was a $9 million shortfall for, and I don't want to use this like, just throw it out, but relatively small amount of personnel. Yet, when the council made its decision to transfer coalition workers to the DWP, 1,500 strong, it resulted in a $10 million shortfall in the amount of money that's transferred from DWP to the city. So the point that I'm making is the importance of the staffing is one thing, but the relative difference in the amount of money budgeted for the two changes is pretty large. 1,500 people, $10 million.
Great, thank you very much.
For a
Mr. White?
short number of fire people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members. Hi, Councilwoman Martinez. As the committee knows, I'm concerned about the 25 million gallons of butane at Rancho facility.
This is on item
I
1.
agree. It's ComStat. We're talking about response times relative.
Actually, FireStat. But yeah.
FireStat, thank you. Okay, FireStat, response times. I want to basically single out this facility as in connection with the report and have the committee or the council as a whole, when it hits the council, to ask the chief whether or not it's possible basically to make a specific report to the council on the costs as well as the time factors involved in the event of an accident on whatever level, if either 12.5 million gallons blows or 25 million gallons blows, and what exactly is involved and what are those costs, and how we can best mitigate those costs, and whether or not any risk management ordinance that I'm advocating that this council pass, and hopefully eventually we'll get a motion out of Mr. Buscaino for that, or some member of the committee.
That doesn't pertain to FireStat. You wanna...
Excuse me. This is my time. I would appreciate the opportunity to complete my statement. Okay? Thank you very much. Now, bottom line is, I think we're in a situation where we need to basically mitigate this risk. We're talking about generically in your FireStat on a response time level, on a citywide basis, because of the nature of this problem and the potential risk that it presents to the community and to the city as a whole, I think we need to basically draw out and isolate the Rancho facility as part of the FireStat statistics and use this opportunity as a demonstration or an evaluation of whether or not additional fire resources are needed, if so the cost, and what those costs would be, and whether or not a risk management ordinance could be drafted and adopted that basically would include some need and reference to mitigation costs in connection with FireStat, mandating basically the fire department to inspect on a regular basis and otherwise mitigate these costs. So therefore, lessening the...
Thank you very much. Chief, if we can bring the chief up. And as we're bringing the chief up, I just want to let everybody know as well what we're going to start doing in public safety, and we've spoken to the chiefs, is we're going to rotate in the chiefs, chief of police, chief of fire, LAX PD, and other departments that oversee cybersecurity through this committee on a regular basis now. So I've spoken to all the departments and bringing them forward for reports on the status of the department, what's going on, the highlights, so thank you this morning for coming, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Councilman Engler, Councilman Buscaino, and welcome, Councilwoman Martinez. And since this is the first time, thank you for having the best first, Councilman Engler. No favoritism there, I'm sure.
No favoritism.
As we report on Firestat, I wanted to start out by saying that we wouldn't have been able to move as far forward as we have now without your support early on in identifying some funding for the fire department and taking leadership there, and then the great support from the mayor's office as we looked again to bring contracts on board so that we could use some contractors and private industry to start digesting the data for us and giving it to us in very manageable chunks as we move forward. We've made some big strides forward as we look at having that comprehensive system that measures all the inputs, outputs, and outcomes of the Los Angeles Fire Department, with ultimately goal of having that available for all of our stakeholders, both internally and externally. As we reported several weeks ago here in public safety, we have the beta version of the dashboard that we've gotten from First Watch that will allow our field commanders utilizing tablet computers to look at their resources, what their response times are, their turnout times, and their on-scene times are, as well as some data on community risks, the types and frequencies of calls in each district. We're still beta testing that version to make sure that we're confident that the data is there, the programming is correct, and then we'll be pushing that out first in a test battalion in Battalion 14 to look at best practices and how we want to, just the business rules of how we want to use it. Our goal as we roll this out to the department is so that when we can provide our officers with that detailed level of data, how they can look for opportunities and best practices to improve public safety, to improve response times, and ultimately to make sure that we're protecting lives and property in the city of Los Angeles. The next steps as we move forward are to incorporate our 18 different disparate databases and some existing dashboards into a single platform. And that integration is the labor-intensive piece. We need programmers, essentially, and we're very short on programmers. One of the things that we've struggled with as we move forward with this, and which has really delayed our progress, is that we have been, as we've reported to public safety, experiencing issues with our Metro Fire Communications, our 911 dispatch. And whenever we have those issues, we pull those same programmers that are working on this project to work on that Metro Fire Communications issues. And we've been very successful in making sure that that system's more robust, address the issues that we found, and put in corrective measures. But every time we have to do that, it stops everything else from moving forward. So we will be bringing on some additional staff with a senior fire statistics manager and a statistical analyst, but that we have 6 months funding that we've got support from public safety for, and those will start in January. We're moving forward with filling those positions for January. But again, we struggle with making sure we have the staffing necessary and making sure that we have the funding to purchase the software products that we need. Our number one priority for all of that staffing in our IT department is going to be that 911 dispatch center and making sure that we maintain the ability to rapidly dispatch resources to the correct location. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank the information technology for the city of Los Angeles. Steve Reneker and his folks have been amazing in helping us move this forward as we've tried to roll out these products and move forward here. I'm ready to entertain any questions that you have, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to my colleagues first. Ms. Martinez.
Question. I know in discussing our aging CAD system, are we any closer to putting out the RFP for the CAD?
What we're doing right now, thank you very much, Councilman Buscaino. What we're doing right now is the mayor's office has helped us identify funding for a consultant, Sitcom, and what they're doing is a comprehensive needs assessment and evaluation of all our technology for our dispatch system. They're looking at the integration of our CAD system, our fire station alerting system, and the AVL project, that's the automated vehicle location project, that's ongoing as we speak right now. And then we're going to incorporate that report, which we'll get back in 90 days from them. We'll incorporate the information we get from that into that RFP, and we'll get that RFP out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Chief. And one of the things that I'd like to look at, and I was going through back to the November 2012 report, identifying that was a preliminary report for Firestat LA, which discussed not only the data issues in calculating response times and technology systems and what we have to do, but also taking the Firestat LA, besides what IDA's done, the Information Data Analysis Task Force, which has been very helpful to identify those weaknesses and figure out what we need to fix. But taking it to the next level, as well as the communication efforts and bringing in regular meetings and looking at incidents as well, modeling it after a lot of what ComStat's done in LAPD. So the areas that have been identified in that report from the CAD systems that Mr. Buscaino brought up, and several programming changes that I know have been brought to this committee as well in that 30-year-old system, and what we're doing to bring in the new one with the data anomalies. But the training and education component, I'd like to hear more about that in terms of the weaknesses in requiring professional analysts is what it described, and looking to bridge that gap. Right. The future database decisions that IDA task force came up with, and the needs for LAFD to improve its process of integration systems with ITA, and it sounds like a lot of that has already happened as well. But as it relates to the various technology pieces and the alerting system, the AVL you talked about, and progress on that. So with all of these different components, one of the components that was recognized in the report, the deliverables, was asking for a comprehensive technology-based strategic plan. Yes. And so what I'd like back is, if we can, and I want to ask you for a timeline, is actually a written report on the technology and the strategic plan, as well as the Firestat implementation plan with a timeline on what's left to do, what are the tasks to get things implemented and off the ground. So, and I'm sure those have already been identified. Right. So if we can get some type of written report that talks about the technology-based strategic plan, which is critically important, because if we back into that, that's when we figure out and we get into these debates, if you will, and I'll be kind, about where to spend the money, and do we just send more money to the fire department because we're moving resources around. Response times change dramatically based on technology needs and shortfalls of the budget issues and staffing levels. It's all based on data. It's all based on, and we've said from the beginning that we've inherited such an antiquated and archaic system that the data is often just wrong because of programming errors, because of training errors, because of all kinds of issues that have now been identified. And that's the first step to fixing a problem, is identifying the problem. And a lot of those issues, or some of those issues, have been corrected. Some of them are ongoing and require a lot more funding. So having that technology-based strategic plan, I think, is critically important. But the tasks and that timeline on moving forward to truly get not only that off the ground and initiated, but the full Firestat LA as visioned in the original proposal and motion that I authored and supported by the department, and now that's off the ground. How long would it take to put that type of timeline together, and what's outstanding?
As we look at two of the consultants that have been contracted to look at this for the City of Los Angeles, the one internally for us for our dispatch center, and then the one that's looking at the ITA department and all the city strategic plan, I think that ours will be done in 90 days. I'm not sure when ITA's will be done, and it would be important that we incorporate information found out in both of those reports before we were able to clearly outline how soon we could come out with a strategic plan, because we'll need that information. And the timelines, we'll be able to give timelines as far as specific hours necessary on projects, with the understanding that, again, anytime we have any type of an issue with our dispatch center, it stops the timeline moving forward for fire stat, and we prioritize, because 911 dispatch is always our number one priority, making, as you well know, sir, making sure that we get folks out there.
So if we
can give a timeline for hours, absolutely, for
if we did some sort of a project analysis
Like a
on
Gantt
fire
chart.
stat and said, here are all the categories for fire stat LA
Right.
on what needs to happen to get it truly functional, to be the equivalent, if you will, on the fire side of what CompStat's doing.
Correct.
Here's a timeline on each one of those initiatives, at least so we have some goals and objectives to move towards. And it was realizing it's going to be a fluid and moving target, but at least we have something to look at of what's outstanding, what do we have left to do,
Certainly.
and what are the timelines for those implementation plans. How long do you think it would take to put that type of basic plan together?
Anything I give you would be an estimate right now, Councilman Englander. I'll consult with staff, and we'll get back to your office to give you an exact timeline on putting that together, but it's something that's very doable.
Would it be fair to ask that it come back to this committee in 60 days, just to give a rough outline of where we're at?
60 days we
I'd
could
like
do.
to stay on it and
Yeah,
try to figure out, and again,
We are on it.
something
This
in
is a
writing, it doesn't
priority
have
for the
to be...
department as well. And again, understand that we'll pull staff off of FireStat to work on developing the timeline and this for you, so that's going to slow things down. We struggle again, as you know, as I've told you before, with...
I understand.
It's the same staff that's working on all these projects, so, but absolutely, we can get that back in 60 days.
Perhaps it's something I would suggest that we move then to some of that to the IDA task force, which these are all volunteers, where we've brought in USC and RAND. I understand that one of the initiatives the mayor just made in appointing some of the new commissioners
Yes.
Was taking a former commissioner, the one who headed up, or soon-to-be former commissioner, Alan Scobin, who headed up IDA, is moving him into an advisory role on IDA to the mayor directly. So perhaps that's an opportunity to look at having that group help put together sort of the next steps of FireStat as well.
Absolutely, we'll reach out and look at those volunteers and see what they'll do. Yes, sir.
Great.
We can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anything else, colleagues? Chief?
Thank you, Chief Senning. Thank you very much.
Chiefs plural. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Or chief and minions. Okay. Thank you. And then with that, we'll go ahead and item 2 we have for a closed session, but we do have cards on it. So why don't we hold off on that for a moment, and we'll go ahead and go into the we took 16 brush clearance.
Item 16, Board of Fire Commissioners report relative to proposed decision and recommendation for 2012 brush clearance assessment appeals.
We've got, can we do a minute on the clock on each one of these? And we do have 2 cards. Masheed? And Dr. Williams. I don't see Dr. Williams. Oh, here he is. Yeah, he's here. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, only 1 minute?
Well, when we get into brush clearance, and let me just... Why don't we start with Dr. Williams, and then I'll come back to you in a second.
Thank you.
You could stay there, though, if you'd like.
I just need my...
Certainly.
Only
Morning.
1 minute? Wow. Okay. Brush clearance. It's a major issue every year. Same problems. We have the most stringent requirements. Sorry. Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, etc. We have the most stringent requirements in the United States. We think that the LA Fire Department relocates their equipment based upon brush fire clearance. No. If you're going to clear it, prevent it, why do you have to relocate equipment so that you can have a faster response time? We won't go into that part. But here's the basic element. It's an arbitrary system right now. Ballona wetlands is considered a major fire hazard, but it's never cleared. What's happening? It's arbitrary. The enforcement is, if you live in Mount Washington or in Mulholland, you don't have to clear as much as you do if you're in South Central. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Morning, ma'am. Before we, you go ahead and open it up, because I'm assuming you're here on an appeal on a particular matter, or is it just
Yes,
general public
it is
comment
a
on the item?
personal matter.
Okay. With that, I just wanted to let you know then on the scope of the Public Safety Committee meeting as it pertains to brush clearance. it goes through various steps, and without going through all those steps, which are all published, the scope of this committee is particular to hear newly discovered or additional information or evidence that hasn't yet been presented to the various steps before leading up to this. And then there's 4 possible outcomes of confirming either the assessment, reducing the amount, and either decide to hear the case based on the record of newly discovered information. And so that's really, or to refer the case back to the hearing officer. So that's the scope of the committee, just so you have an understanding of that. And with that, if we can go into whatever particular item you had, happy to discuss it. Morning.
I tried very hard to cut this down to 2 minutes because I thought I was going to have 2 minutes. Am I allowed to present at least what I've written?
What you can do is, do you have documents you can submit?
I have submitted the documents.
Right, and so those, and if you can walk us through whatever new.
I mean, I understand it correctly now that absolutely there's nothing, you're not going to basically change the decision that apparently has been made. But all I can say to fast forward is I have been charged, I'm being asked to pay $9,100 for a job that I could have done for, this year I got it done for $1,850. I've been charged tremendous amount of fees and penalties, and it is beyond me. It is really above what I can afford, and I really respectfully request for you to look at the pamphlets that I have presented and decide for your own that if the fees and penalties and everything that is being imposed on me is proper or not.
Right, thank you very much.
And I understand if you don't make a decision right now, this second, I get that. But somehow there has been a lot of unfortunate happenings.
Okay, I'm going to ask Captain Knight to weigh in on this, on your information in your case as well, if we could.
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning. And first of all, let me compliment you on, this is the thinnest blue book I've ever seen. So that's pretty remarkable. And usually these are 5 or 6 or 10 inches thick. So you've really done a tremendous amount of work this year in bringing this forward. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. That's correct. My name is Robert Knight. I'm the captain and commander of the Fire Department's Brush Clearance Program. And there are approximately 180,000 properties that are located in the very high fire hazard severity zone. And we inspect those annually. So those property owners who fail or refuse to comply, we move forward and we abate those hazards. The appellant, Ms. Masheed, owns 2 properties that are located in the zone. And both of these properties are located in the Bel Air Canyon Estates area. There is one property she was assessed for $2,038 in 2012. That property has a structure on it. And the second property is a vacant land, which is approximately just over 12 acres. It extends from Stone Canyon and Lavica Way clear across the canyon to Stradella Road. And it threatened, based upon the inspection that was taking place in 2012, there were approximately 20 very large estate homes that posed a threat as a result of that property. The notices were sent out to the address that we had on record. No return mail. We also post a property notifying the property owner that a hazard exists. We had no response from the property owner. The property is then put into a bidding process that is open and transparent. We take the lowest bid, and the bid went out for the property with the home of $2,038. And the bid went out for the property on the vacant lot that's 12 acres for $5,500. And there's some administrative fee that's associated with that. In relationship to the cost, I reviewed the property myself personally because I had a conversation with Ms. Masheed. And basically, I'm looking at it, this property is very steep terrain in certain areas. And it's a canyon that straddles a large area, and so the cost is what it is. That's what it bid it for. We approved it, and we brought it back into compliance.
Thank you very much. And also in reviewing, did you get a copy of her package that she submitted?
No, I did not. Okay. She emailed me some photos of some palm trees.
I'm reviewing the package here, and again, under the purview of this committee, it's only up to us to not review the entire case, but actually to take into consideration any new evidence that's presented that hadn't been presented prior to. I'm not seeing that in the package. You did a great job, ma'am, of describing exactly the situation and what happened, and we obviously, in terms of brush clearance, take it very seriously, particularly in hillside and high fire severity zones as a threat to other properties. And we've done, and the fire department has done an incredible job of outreach, communication, education, information, making it easy for property owners to self-assess, to clean up their properties, tremendous notification efforts. This book, going back years ago, used to be about this thick, and this just gives you an idea of how few there are now. This is citywide in assessment hearings that haven't been cleared just because of the tremendous effort that has been made on behalf of the department, under the direction of the chief as well as the city council and the mayor. So it's one of the most important things in terms of fire prevention and safety that we could do outside of the structures themselves. So with that, we do take it very seriously. I've reviewed the package. It does give you a very good, extensive history in what occurred, but there's no new information to take into consideration, and therefore it'll be the recommendation of this committee, unless there's any objections, that we move forward with the recommendation from the department. You'll have the opportunity. It's going to come back to the full city council. You have the opportunity to talk to your council member and their office as well. But at this point, that'll be the recommendation of this committee. I don't believe there's any others that are being appealed, so we'll go ahead and move forward on all the recommendations. That'll be the action.
Am I allowed to respond?
We can't have a rebuttal, but we'll go ahead and file this as well as part of the public record. And that'll be coming to the city council when, John?
A date hasn't been set yet, but it'll be after Labor Day.
After Labor
Day. 3rd or 4th.
Excellent.
I'll contact the appellant and let her know.
Okay, great. Thank you. That'll be the action, item 16. Thank you very much. With that, let's go ahead and take the item 3 next.
Item 3, motion Blumenfield Price instructing police department to report relative to the level of coordination that exists with domestic violence support services, how the domestic abuse response team functions, and whether there are any unmet needs, and recommendations for strengthening the department's partnerships with service providers.
Chief, good morning.
Good morning, council member.
Have you had the opportunity to go through Mr. Blumenfeld's motion and report back on domestic violence and what we're doing in terms of the department's domestic abuse response teams? And
we have, and again, good morning. Kirk Albanese, Chief of Detectives for the LAPD. With me is Detective Monica Chiano, the Domestic Violence Coordinator for the department, and works out of my office, and Miss Eileen Decker from the Mayor's office.
Morning.
Morning.
If you could,
and we have had a chance, council member, to your question, to review the motion and prepare to respond on it.
Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. To start with, just by way of understanding the scope of domestic violence in the city, we're averaging over the last 3 years about 48,000 calls per year that are domestic violence related. And when we look back over the course of history, the laws concerning domestic violence have really come into focus as it relates to the responsibility of the community and the police department. The department's efforts in terms of the DART program, which is a part of how we respond to domestic violence in the city, has evolved and will continue to evolve. We have currently 13 DART programs in the city. There are 8 commands that do not have a DART program. There are issues as it relates to funding. There are issues as it relates to resources. We work closely with the mayor's office in that regard. We work closely with the service providers and the shelters and ensure that we're doing the very best we can for our victims in terms of getting them into court, in terms of getting them services, in terms of ensuring restraining orders are in place when they need to be in place, et cetera. So this is and will continue to be a significant focus for the LAPD in terms of understanding it and making sure we're doing everything we can for our victims. And we work closely with the mayor's office in terms of the funding piece. There are a number of different sources on that funding. And so Ms. Decker, I think, can speak to that piece if the council is interested in that.
Well, I think the critical thing on this is just really to hear back that things are being done. Obviously, we can always do and have more resources to do more. And I just also wanted to take this opportunity to highlight a pilot program that we've launched in my district in a partnership. I don't know if you've got a smartphone on you, but if you do, go ahead and go to lapdfred.org if you haven't seen that yet. We haven't really fully announced it publicly, but it's a partnership with LAPD that we've launched in CD12. And so if those of you who actually have a smartphone, take a look. lapdfred.org.
As in the name or friend?
As in the name Fred. lapdfred.org. Faith Resource Directory. And so what we've done is we've got an app now for every police officer in the field. And we've taken all the faith-based organizations, and so while they're from all the churches and the synagogues, take a look at it.
Incredible.
And so we know every church, pretty cool, huh?
Cool.
Yeah, we know every church and every synagogue and everything they offer, from housing to shelter, domestic violence, therapy, food, you name it, whatever they need. So, we can go directly on an app, and it's all live, so we know it's up to date, rather than having an old printed book that we got to dig through. And we know what's around, the hours of operation, to contact people, who to call. So at a moment's notice, at 1 o'clock in the morning, when you've got an officer out in the field, and they run across a victim of domestic violence or any other situation where somebody needs help, and they got to figure out, well, who do I turn them over to, instead of just saying, well, call the county or call the city during these hours. And we actually have a live app where every officer and individual can help other people through faith-based organizations. We've partnered with Ken Crawford. We funded this out of my office. We started it about a year ago, and we've just launched the app. It's now live, and officers are testing it out in the field. It's just a pilot, so it's nothing we've even really taken to LAPD. We've just taken our own initiative in my office to work with it and work with the faith-based organizations, led by our department chaplain, Ken Crawford, who's just done a phenomenal job with this. We announced it last night at a town hall, but this is an effort to help. It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
We'd like to
Sure,
take
this
this
is great.
citywide. Yes.
Yeah,
Is that great?
yeah. Now we need to step up and do it
That's
in
right.
Pacific and West LA. And
So I encourage everybody to take a look at that. And I was excited because I saw this motion and said, okay, this is an effort that we can do more with less, where we can put this technology, it's all out there now. We've got all these organizations already providing this enhancement to our officers and to the public, to the fire department that can also utilize this. And there's nothing in there that is secretive information. We don't list any locations of shelters that would protect women and children. That's not publicized. It's strictly faith-based organizations that are willing to help, and all the services, they all offer different services. So I really want to thank Mr. Blumenfeld and Mr. Price for authoring this motion, for what the mayor's office is doing. Particularly, Chief, under your leadership, you've been just a hero in everything you've been doing in leading the effort to ensure that we constantly try to get more resources, that this is one of the most critical things that LAPD could do, is help those that are most in need in the most traumatic events. And I applaud your leadership in this.
Thank you very
we look
much.
forward to the partnership, and I'm happy to share the app with you and look for the discussions and how we can roll this out citywide.
Thank you.
Anything?
just a couple quick questions. One, Mr. Chair, this really is awesome. I'm sending it to my staff now. Who among you intersects with the Domestic Violence Task Force?
That would be myself.
Okay, all right. I'll be the council liaisons to the Domestic Violence Task Force. How often do you have an opportunity to meet with them?
We meet monthly as a task force, and then we have subcommittees that meet throughout the month.
Okay. And I suspect this isn't as big an issue for our city as it is for some others, but other cities don't do a particularly good job responding to complaints of domestic violence in LGBT situations. How often do we have issues of domestic violence in LGBT relationships, and is it something that we're tracking?
We track domestic violence in its totality, but we work in strong partnerships with the LA Gay and Lesbian Center. We partner with them as part of a subgroup task force, both in the city and county, and we are working in partnership as far as creating additional curriculum, outreach, and training. And so we work in close partnership to address the needs as they arise and identify whatever changes that need to be made. And we work with our training division as well.
Yeah, a lot of times I've heard anecdotally, and I haven't heard much here in Los Angeles, an LGBT couple may have a domestic violence incident and one partner will report it and law enforcement just doesn't take it seriously. Oh, it's, those gays or something like that.
I understand.
And I'd like to, if you could send me copies of or meet with me to discuss the curriculum, I'd just like to see what it is and make sure our officers are being appropriately trained on that.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Councilmember, I just add that if we're ever aware of an incident where we think the department can do better, the department wants to know about it real time so that we can correct the behavior, make sure that if our training needs to be corrected, that we can do that and really address it rather than hear about it downrange when we have less opportunity to do something about it. So I encourage in that regard as well, and certainly welcome to call me in that regard.
Thank you.
If I could just add, we will be at the Chiefs Forum in October, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we will be presenting a portion and providing resources as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. We had 2 speaker cards on this. Did we have, do you want anything? Mr. Godin, Bobby Godin, and Pincus. Well, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have 2 other items, and I know we're running tight on time. So we've got AB109 Impacts. We've got a tremendous amount of speaker cards on that. Special Order 7, we have scheduled for a closed session. I'm going to see if we can get through, since we have more cards on AB109 Impacts, I think we should go through that since a lot of people are here on that item as well. And I don't have any speaker cards. I have 1 speaker card on item 2, and that's it. We'll probably go ahead and hold over Special Order 7. I also, since it's for closed session, what we may do on Special Order 7 is have a special Public Safety Committee meeting on that, just schedule a very specific meeting on that for next week. And so we'll go ahead and that'll be the order on that. And so with that, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bobby Gooden, and I'm the project manager for the Domestic Abuse Response Team at 77th Division's LAPD and Project Peacemakers Incorporated. And Mr. Bonin, I'd like to address your inquiry.
Thank you.
As far as 77th is concerned, the way we operate is we ride with officers. Okay, so we respond to the calls with officers. And everyone who is a victim, no matter what. Domestic violence, if it's man, woman, LGBT, everyone is treated the same. Also, we have a 40-hour domestic violence advocate training that we have twice a year at 77th, and someone from the LGBT community comes and does a presentation for that. So it is addressed.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Gail Pincus. I'm from the Domestic Abuse Center in Van Nuys. I'm 2 blocks from your Valley office. And I live and work in the Van Nuys division, so I have a very personal stake in our domestic abuse response team, which we actually started in 1994 at the invitation of LAPD. The response team has been, through trial and error, come up with a model that with a specially trained LAPD officer and one or two of our advocates responding to the scene of domestic violence calls makes the deepest impact and is the most successful of the interventions, because that marriage of the two perspectives is highly effective, resulting in more cooperative victims, resulting in better police reports, higher rates of filings on the felony level, which is what everybody wants. But we have also worked very collaboratively in understanding each other's perspectives. So, for instance, as we began to ride with them, we could see holes in legislation so that we could then propose on a statewide level legislation to fix some of those problems, and then advocated from that perspective, and bringing more and more resources that were specific, that you can't see when you sit in an office, to the teams itself and to LAPD, the training that we've been able to give to the LAPD officers that are so dedicated on the DART teams, on being able to get an officer that really wants to be there, that's high enough ranking and secure enough in their knowledge base, and being able to work independently makes a huge difference. And
Matt, I don't want to cut you off, but we got to watch the time very closely.
Yes.
So, yeah, but thank you very much for coming, though, as well, and truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for everything you're doing. Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues?
Move to approve.
All right, we'll go ahead and approve that without objection. And the next item, we'll go ahead and we've got one speaker card on item 9 and one on 14. Arnold Sachs. For both.
Item 9, communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to modifying the budget of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security fiscal year 2010 Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant Program and related contract authorities. On this, council members, there is a new CEO report dated August 22nd, 2013 before you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. My concerns with this actually refer back to the state legislation that was passed allowing the governor to meet with the Board of Supervisors on threats that are immediate. And where does that sit with the Homeland Security? Where does it sit with the City of LA, the mayor? Where does it sit with the City of LA Police Chief? Where does it sit with the county's sheriff? I mean, this is a headline from the newspaper, the Daily Breeze, August 8th, immediate and growing threat, and yet the County Board of Supervisors and the governor haven't met on this. So it's really disingenuous, this legislation that was passed that allows the governor and the board to meet. This is mostly about budgetary items like Prop 30 that funded AB109. Keep that in mind.
Hold on, we got one more, right?
Okay, so 9 and 14, that'll conclude public comments on those. We'll go ahead and move those without objection. Those were originally on the consent. And fulfill public comment requirement on those. And we'll go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting and take us to the special agenda on item 1.
Special 1, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to analysis of the costs incurred by the LAPD related to the enactment of Assembly Bill 109, the Public Safety Realignment Act.
Okay. We've got several speaker cards here on this item as well, so let me ask the chief if he'd like, would you prefer to present first?
We can, I can wait. I'll defer to the public. That'll be fine.
Okay. We're going to call up Azam Mohammed, Lynn Hyman,
Oh, thank you.
followed by, and excuse me, just trying to read the writing, Wilkerson.
Good morning.
And Herman Aviles. Can all please take a seat? Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming this morning. Really
Thank you.
And you can go ahead and start.
Thank you so much.
My name is Azim Mohammed, and I'm here today on behalf of LA Regional Reentry Partnership, as well as LA No More Jails. We've been calling for an analysis of the cost of the implementation of AB109 for some time now. There's been hundreds of millions of dollars spent and no report to date as to where this money is going, what the impact it is having physically, as well as the community impact. And we join you in your effort to get some answers, because the Sheriff Department, probation, and mental health is basically spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's no accountability whatsoever. So we ask you today to sort of put some pressure on these folks to make sure we determine where this money is going. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, can you identify yourself, please?
Good morning, Lynn Lyman. I'm the
Lynn,
State
thank
Director for the Drug Policy Alliance. I'm here today representing the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. We're a coalition of over 150 organizations across LA County that work to improve reentry services for formerly incarcerated people. Over the past 2 years, we've dealt primarily with the implementation of Realignment, AB 109. We're here today to express our concerns about the way that LAPD has been conducting compliance checks in the community, and I do have a number of affidavits to submit as testimony. We understand the need for law enforcement to do compliance checks or home visits on people who may be under community supervision. Our concern today is with the way that they are doing those checks at residential treatment facilities. These are rehabilitation and recovery centers where people are there to really recover from their substance abuse, former addictions, disorders, whatever it may be, and LAPD is often showing up early in the morning, 4 or 5 cars, guns drawn. There's children and women who are being pulled out of their beds. It's not just disruptive for the people who are in recovery, it's also disruptive for the neighborhoods, and we work very hard in our residential treatment service
Ma'am, we have other
facilities
speakers. Thank you, ma'am.
to work with the community. So I would like to submit this testimony.
Sure. If you can, thank you, Margot. Good morning. Is it Nanny?
Yes, Nanny Wilkerson.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Hi, I'm a resident at A New Way of Life, and so I'm not AB 109. However, there's other women in the House that are AB 109, and I've been privy to 3 of the very abusive interactions with the officers that come in there, being led by Sergeant Melendez. They're coming in and they're making everyone come and be sequestered into an area. They are not asking us questions. They're totally interrogating us. However, their demeanor is different whenever Ms. Burton, who is the executive director of A New Way of Life, is there. And the way that they come into the neighborhood, they're driving in like they're a SWAT team. They never have a female officer. They're waking these women up between the hours of 7:30 and 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. They're not allowing the women an opportunity to get clothed. And it's just progressively getting worse, and so we've designed the women to come and speak up for themselves. So today I'm here to let you know, fully aware that it's very inappropriate.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Herman Aviles. I'm part of the Pasadena-Altadena Reintegration Council, and we work very closely with the Pasadena Police Department. We have a reintegration council. We meet every 3rd Thursday of the month for people that are coming out of prison, whether federal, state, it doesn't matter. We assist them. We all come together and we provide services from tattoo removal all the way to employment and housing. In Pasadena, the compliance unit meets with us, and when they go out and do compliance, they put me on high alert. They have my phone number, and when they go into the house, they do their compliance checks, and then they ask them, are there any services that are needed? Do you need housing? Do you need anything, employment? And if Officer Russo identifies a person that needs that assistance, he calls me and I go to the house, and that's how we work together tandemly with the Pasadena Police Department, and I don't see that being done over here with the LAPD, because I don't think they work with any nonprofit agencies. I'm not really sure, but that's how we do it in Pasadena.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker cards are Fania. Fania? Fania?
Yes.
Fania. How are you? Good morning. Dr. Mike Agustin, followed by Denise Cornelius and Arnold Sachs. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Please, you can start anytime you like. We'll start your clock again. Not a problem. Sorry.
My name is Fania Barudi. I'm an employee of a New Way of Life Reentry Project. I'm the community organizer for All of Us or None. I encountered a compliance check with officers coming to the New Way of Life home, and in engaging them in conversation just at the door, there was some anticipation of a problem because the Sergeant Melendez asked the two officers that was in front of me to bring me out. They reached in to try to grab me, and I jumped back. At that time, I didn't even know the sergeant was behind the door on the wall, and he came in, and we engaged in conversation. So if I was going to be contained for just having conversation, why wasn't I contained? The compliance checks that these officers are doing needs to go to the probation department, period, because they are the ones that has the jurisdiction over the individuals and know who they are by their assessment in the file. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Morning.
Hi, Mike Agostin, clinical psychologist employed at Tarzana Treatment Center. I would just like to speak to that 57% of rearrests for violations and or new arrests is a direct link to lack of services. And that link to lack of services directly impacts families and the safety of the community. Providing more funding for treatment would benefit the community and furthermore assist the police department in providing a supervision of AB 109 participants. I have been working with parolees or people under supervision of the criminal justice system for over 25 years. And I know that the more involvement we have with both the participants in providing treatment services and involvement of the outside agencies, probation department, enhances the likelihood of change and further reduces the cost of the community and increases the tax base. So my recommendation is more funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Denise Cornelius, and I have had the opportunity of working on both sides. 20 years in service with state parolees, federal probationers, and also the new realignment of AB 109. I have some concerns with family members who are 80% of our probationers have family members who they can go and live with. However, the community checks that are happening are bizarre, to say the least. Children are being impacted, traumatized. Police officers are walking in unannounced, guns drawn, and it's causing a severe community outpour of neighbors. And then probationers are not able to go home to their families because no one wants to be subjected to this type of behavior. In the past, parole officers, they knocked at your door, they presented themselves, or they left a card. They didn't come in with guns drawn, and so this needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. People requesting funding from the city. This is not really your situation. This is a county. This is the board. They met again in closed session with Jerry Brown to discuss the realignment. And the discussion occurred around them supporting Prop 30, which not only would pay for education, but would fund the realignment programs. They've talked about they've talked about personnel, they've talked about the status of the people being released, all in open session. The only thing they would have talked about is the money for AB 109. The county got a lot of money. Let me give you a good example. They just talked about domestic abuse, DCFS. They authorized to hire 650 positions, funded. They actually hired 150. 500 empty positions.
Thank you very much.
$100,000 each, $50 million. Where's the money?
That'll conclude public comment, Chief. Thanks for your patience on this. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, so we really appreciate it. And before you start off, we did have an LAPD town hall in my district. We spent a lot of time talking about AB 109 as well. There's a lot of questions from the community. And I just want to compliment LAPD And under your leadership, Chief, what we've done, while there's high rates of recidivism, while it's costing us taxpayers and the police department, more than $18 million is identified in your report, not including cap costs, which is another 130% of that, roughly. It's still, either way, a responsibility of the city and the department to protect our communities, and crime is down because of it. And so, with your, although I'm not happy with AB 109, and that's a whole other issue which we'll get into, but if you can give us highlights, really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Councilman Busciano, and a welcome to Councilmember Martinez and Councilman Bonin to the council floor. We appreciate your leadership in stepping into this new role. To this committee, Assistant Chief Mike Moore, Office of Special Operations, appearing on behalf of the report by the department that was approved by the Board of Police Commissioners this past Tuesday. It's in front of you. Councilman, thank you for the kind remarks. It really is the leadership of Chief Charlie Beck and the men and women of Los Angeles Police Department that continues to work in great partnership, both with our communities and its various stakeholders, as well as the two gentlemen behind me, Mr. Bingham, as well as Mr. Wong, that are with probation, our Sheriff's Department, under leadership of Sheriff Baca, as well as the other members of the law enforcement community here in Los Angeles County. The efforts of the department in response to AB 109 and the implementation of realignment, this was not a matter that the department sought. This was a matter that the department is responding to because of recognizing the potential for the serious impact that the realignment could bring to our communities. We are hopeful, and as a department and as law enforcement professionals, that this realignment strategy is going to prove successful in reducing recidivism and in improving the ability of people who have been convicted and have been sentenced to serious terms of incarceration, that it will provide a means of improving recidivism and lowering those that are falling back into lives of crime and are creating such an impact on our community safety. As we work through this, our initial response to AB 109 was to augment the efforts of Department of Probation as well as LA County Sheriffs in providing community supervision. The importance of recognizing that strategy is that these are individuals that heretofore were sentenced to state prison, and upon their release would have 3 years of active supervision by state parole officers, and over that 3 years, in excess of 60% would reoffend, would be committed back to state prison because of new offenses, because of their inability to successfully reintegrate. We recognize that 2 years ago, this October, that in the absence of community supervision, people doing compliance checks, people following up and understanding where these individuals who have been released from state prison are, that we could expect that they would reoffend, that they would commit new crimes, and that our decade plus of crime reduction and improvement in safety levels in Los Angeles and in this region would be in peril. So Chief Beck, recognizing that there was much discussion at the time about funding and about what the county and their agencies would have as part of the realignment of monies that were brought to each of the counties in the state, what amount of that money would end up in city coffers so that departments within the city and local agencies and non-government providers, that whole debate of who's going to get the dollars, we looked beyond, because it was not a matter of that should jeopardize public safety as a debate of who would fund what. We looked at it rather strategically to say, are these offenders that in the absence of effective community supervision we could anticipate would reoffend, that in the absence of effective services and meaningful support in regards to drug treatment, mental health treatment, housing, jobs, that we could expect would reoffend? And the answer is an obvious yes. We only need to look at and we need to follow what has happened since then to see evidence of what we've projected. What we do believe is that in the establishment of dedicated personnel in each of our 21 areas to do one of three functions, or to do three functions. One, to do compliance checks in concert with the Department of Probation, in coordination with them, identify the very high risk and the high risk individuals that are released, which is about 76% of the individuals who come to LA City. Of the nearly 5,000 that are under active PSP supervision today, again, let me repeat, 3 of 4 by scientific assessment of their risk potential for reoffending, 76% fall into the very high or high category. Unsupervised, unvisited, unchecked, they have little incentive to successfully reintegrate, we believe, because of the factors that are influencing their place: narcotic and drug histories, alcohol abuse, lack of job skills, lack of family support and meaningful social support for them. So in identifying these 21 areas, a team, they focus each day in identifying who are these individuals within their local neighborhood. Who are those that are in compliance? Who are those that are absconded, that aren't cooperating with probation, that aren't attending meetings, that aren't attending and taking advantage of support services? As we identify those individuals, we take enforcement action. Now, the results of these efforts, some 6,000 plus compliance checks were completed last year by these teams. In the absence of these teams, those compliance checks would not have occurred. It's simply probation has not, they did not solicit this work, and they have struggled in the last 2 years to add capacity, and they continue to add capacity, and we're hopeful and we look to promise of that added capacity, because as they add capacity, they're going to be able to assign more deputy probation officers to work with our teams. Today we have 5 of those individuals assigned. We're hopeful of the day that we'll have a probation officer in each of our 21 areas. As that happens, we believe the coordination between our agencies will improve even further. We see that in all our other actions when we partner with agencies and they co-locate with us. Let me just cover a couple of results. Much has been said as to these being low-level offenders.
I don't want to interrupt you, but they are starting counsel downstairs.
So let me try to land this. Can I?
Yeah, if we
Okay,
could.
so let me land this. The reports are in there before you. I'll be happy to talk about the concern. I want to talk briefly about residential treatment facilities. We are aware, as we're taking on this function, of a concern regarding the treatment of individuals in residential treatment facilities. The department has established expectations, protocols, requirements that as we go to treatment facilities, that first of all, we have a deputy probation officer with us. Secondly, there's a supervisor there. Third, that there's outreach or meetings with the residence providers in advance of such compliance checks. And lastly, that those compliance checks are productive, that they're needed relative to some evidence or information that this individual is a very high or high risk of reoffending. We, however, recognize the community complaints that have been made today. I've reached out to Ms. Lynn or Ms. Lyman. We will meet and specifically talk about the New Way of Life as one of the providers, because I have to state in closing, our men and women, I believe, and as a department, we believe, are doing meaningful work in this arena. We do think that there are errors, and we will address them as we become aware.
With that, I do anticipate a very lengthy discussion in council, and the whole opportunity was to get this report and get it in council. And I know we've got to leave it. I know the members have a lot of questions as well, and we want to dive deep into this. But I want to get it to council so we can actually have this very detailed discussion around the horseshoe with everybody engaged. It's not moving it just out of committee. The whole idea is I almost just waived it and wanted to get it to council. I know every district and every council member really wants to weigh in on this, and I want to afford that opportunity and give it the lengthy discussion and detail that it requires. But before I close with that, let me just say that the police department, under your leadership, Chief, and Charlie Becks has done a phenomenal job. We've inherited a nightmare. This is not the responsibility of LAPD, but now it is, because it becomes a problem, which becomes the responsibility of LAPD. So with that responsibility, I feel, as the Chair of Public Safety, the department has made the right decisions early on that it wasn't just a pointing a finger game and a financial issue. It was, well, it's here now. We're going to have to deal with it proactively and get engaged and put the resources towards it. We've got to have the discussion as policymakers of what are we going to do to recoup those fees, to go after the state for AB 109 money, to get various changes. We've seen some dramatic violent crimes in our own districts as a result of this, and we've lost resources in the department. The department is doing exactly what it should be doing, bar none, 100%. In fact, going over and above, and have been doing a phenomenal job. The issue is a bigger issue on a policy matter and a financial matter, is that the state has really put this on our backs. The department has absorbed it and done well. We, as policymakers, have to figure out then what direction we should take to go after these funds, the resources, get changes to AB 109, and have that in-depth discussion. What I'd like, and I don't want to put you in any difficult position, Chief, but you are really have become a law enforcement expert on AB 109 as well. If you can come back to council with any recommendations you would see fit as policy changes, and if you wish to have those discussions offline, that would be appropriate as well. But we want to also commend you for everything you've done and your leadership under this. And in closing remarks, Mr. Bonin.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly, Chief, I don't think it's a particularly well-kept secret that I myself am in recovery, so I think I have a particular sensitivity as a policymaker to some of the concerns of the folks in the residential treatment centers. I would like, before this comes to council, to just have a meeting with you so we can sit and we can discuss and perhaps develop a better appreciation of what the exact policies are at treatment centers and see if we can improve them.
Councilman, absolutely, and we have we have published protocols on these. I'll get those to you today.
Thank you.
And as well as meet with you.
Chief, thanks again for your leadership on this. You know, I was part of those task forces working the field for several years, and I too, as a police officer, questioned, why are we doing this work? Where's the Department of Corrections? This is absurd. And at the same time, we need to hold the state accountable for this. Last time I checked, the LAPD badge read the Los Angeles Police Department, not County Probation or Department of Corrections. So thank you for this. I'm really looking forward to hearing more and in front of the entire City Council.
Ms. Martinez? Move to approve. Okay, so we'll go ahead and send this over to the full City Council for your input. Thank you, Chief. With that will adjourn the special committee. We'll go ahead and reopen the regular committee. The other council members can be excused for council. We're going to go ahead and go just to general public comment. Noel Weiss, followed by Arnold Sachs, followed by Tom Williams. What's that?
Hold on.
Gotta go. Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
All right. 2 out of 5. It's kind of noisy. I
can hear you.
Because it's kind of noisy. No?
I can hear you.
No? All right. I'm advocating, as you know, for the consideration of a risk management ordinance. Mr. Buscano's got these motions that have been sitting. Councilman, you're the chairman of the committee. You can push them forward. I'm advocating that you do that. I'm giving you guys a packet today that includes materials that were given. Basically, I've got a letter. Mayor Brooks wrote a letter. Again, this is for the record. I'm losing everybody's attention, but in any event, for the record, because people are listening, let me just quote Councilwoman Janice Hahn. She responded on August 1st. She's requesting a field hearing. She's concerned that the existing regulation and existing law is not enough to protect the families and school children of the area. And this council needs to move forward in that regard, Mr. Englander.
Thank you. Yes.
I even tried.
Exactly.
Oil and gas development. I submitted a letter requesting that your committee look at the issues of oil and gas. About 7+ months ago, we had a major explosion and flaring at the Southern California Gas Company. Before that, we've had other oil and gas issues coming up. There are many people in the city that don't even know that their next door neighbor is an oil and gas facility. We need to have an inventory of all oil and gas facilities, both for production and for storage, and also for identifying it to the communities, because there is some case history here involved. The city attorney has files, and they took a oil company to court because they almost destroyed the Olive Street near 12th. So can we get a council file started
Thank you
on it?
very much.
Thank you.
All right, that'll conclude public comment. Arnold Sachs had a card. He's no longer here, so that will conclude the Public Safety Committee meeting, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.